it's pretty straightforward. You could see the difference between the different free software, free firewall solutions when you Google it. You could put even the year 2019 or 2020, and you're gonna see very comprehensive ones you're gonna find out. And there will be IPFire and other ones, so you might test all of them if we're interested. You could test them on a virtual machine, something which we're gonna do now. Indeed, actually, if you would like to create a small virtual infrastructure which will protect you from outside, well, you could use this by creating it in the way. Uh, let's say you could create a virtual machine which will be your firewall, and all the machines you're gonna use will be after. I mean, connected to the LAN of the firewall. And actually, in this case, you could because you're gonna get your internet and network accessibility from your one interface on this virtual firewall. You could have a second firewall which will protect even, will protect even further your virtual LAN. You could connect. This concept actually is used by companies like CubeSOS. They does something similar. They virtualize applications, as I mentioned the last time, and actually all of the virtual machines are within a hypervisor which isolates them. They use a technology called Unix. You could use it only by itself, actually, if you don't have the resources to install the cubes. I said the hardware requirements are and the learning curve, they're a little bit higher. So actually you could use the Unix, which the cubes use inside of their technology. So this is Unix. If you go and check it, here it is. It will install by default when you download it. It will install by default two machines on VirtualBox. It will install them, and the second machine will be connected to the first machine, which will be the firewall. Will be connected through internal network. Let me show it to you how it looks actually. I install it on my taskbar. If I start it from the taskbar, I install it for the purposes of this demonstration actually on a remote machine. So when you click on it, it will appear a button. Here it is. So you could start it, and the advanced button actually will give you access to more refined to do stuff on it. Here it is. It will open actually for you the Oracle VirtualBox, and you see there are two machines which are installed when you install the Unix by itself. When you download it and install it, that's the classical way. There are many ways you could install it on Linux machines and so on and so forth. You could install it bare metal as well, virtually, like we did on any operating system and so on and so forth. It's very comprehensive. The most used way though is when you click on the start button. As you see, you could stop it right away after this with the stop button here. Now it's asking me to I could use this, no problem. When you open the VirtualBox and you go and check how the settings are done, here on the network you have this one is not, so it's not in the incoming traffic, and here's the internal network, which is completely isolated. Remember, we learned about this, and I also gave you the idea, and that's the machine we're gonna use as a desktop, so it's on the same internal network. So it is protected and it's using. So if I do, what's my IP address, I would see if we would like to start doing the installation, we'll do it as usually. We'll create a new virtual machine. We'll call it firewall. You could call it whatever you want. Now, the type, as I mentioned, the opnsense, pfSense, uh, these are Unix based, and they're based on the Berkeley software distribution Unix. So you choose BSD for this. this. Now by default it's giving me free BSD. BSD has a lot of forks, as you see, but there are even more. This one is exactly free BSD, but 64-bit version. 64-bit version. It's better to go a little bit more with the, at least initially. You could use 1024 megabyte or 1 gigabyte, but at least initially go to 2 gigabyte of RAM, just to be a little bit more faster when installing. We'll say create. 16 gigabyte of hard space is enough, and the VDI dynamically allocated, no problem at all. We will create it right away like this. Now I'm not gonna put it in clones. Actually, I'm gonna put it in my source here because that's what it is. I'm gonna use it then and clone machines from it. So I'll click settings. Now there will be no graphical interface. We will access a graphical interface through the web interface. So the virtual machine itself is headless. So we don't need to do anything here in the advanced mode. Remember, advanced mode, shared folders, it's when you have a graphical interface. The display settings here to the end, so to 128 megabytes, you don't need to do it when it's headless mode. So I'll remove the floppy as usual. That's an optional thing. It will be skipped otherwise. Be sure here you have the USB tablet. Most of the time today it's working with Unix, Linux, even with Windows better with USB tablet instead of the default sometimes PS2. For some, like Windows, actually they changed it. The default one is USB tablet now. The display we said we don't touch anything. The storage we need to load the ISO image we just downloaded. Well, mine it's already. I'll need to choose it. I'll go wherever my sources are. I have it download already here. And the security, no. These products you could install on a real on a hardware products as well. So what I did, actually the software, the free firewalls, some of the hardware, some of the older version of the hardware producers of firewall, they support. You could, with a little bit of tweaking, you could install this on a real hardware platform. So it to become a real hardware firewall actually. So I'll download the opnsense now. I'll go to the site. I think that's the fastest way. I'll choose, as I showed it to you, AMD. I'll choose here the DVD, which is the ISO image, and I'll select the mirror close to me. Then I'll download it. As you see, it's less than a minute. So before we start the installation, we need to go to the settings. We did already this. Something which I intentionally didn't do, and I'll do it now, is the networking. We're gonna have, if you remember, we're gonna have a couple of different interfaces here. If I go to our project, here it is. That's one of the infrastructures we're gonna create. So basically, we're gonna have the firewall. We have our LAN. We're gonna have our DMZ, and we're gonna have our WAN interface. Okay. So because I wanted to spare a little bit of space, that's why I use WAN and WAN 2 actually, because otherwise I need to do it twice. Okay, one for this infrastructure and one for the other infrastructure. So that's how it will look. I need to choose for my WAN an interface, and we said we're gonna use it bridge. We said in the lecture about the networking interfaces of the WAN. Now, a little bit odd thing here, I would say. I don't know if it's odd. I mean, for me at least, most of the firewalls you're gonna use free, and you could practice on VirtualBox. Most of them, the first adapter will be by default the WAN. It is not true, actually. It might change. It might be the last adapter. The best way to find out which adapter is which is to find out on every adapter what is the hardware address, and afterwards, when the installation starts, you could assign automatically an interface to any of the adapters. So basically, finding out all of these MAC addresses, you could find out which adapter is which. That's the most common way. But commonly, most of the adapters, most of the firewalls which we install to practice, the one by default is the first interface. That's not the rule, once again. Now, again, here it is not the rule, but most commonly, the one interface actually is the second adapter. Okay, so for opnsense. For pfSense, most of the time is the first one. So the one interface, I need to enable this adapter, so we'll enable it. As you see, I have altogether 4 adapters to choose from, and then I would need to choose the bridge. So I'm gonna go and say bridge. In that case, if you remember, it will receive, or it's a one interface, it will receive an IP address from my real network, which indeed is, you saw it, 172.16.0.0.16 subnet mask. So here it is. Now I need to choose the other adapters. By default in opnsense, the first one is the LAN adapter. So if it's a LAN, we said we're gonna choose for this. Now I'm gonna say OK, and I'm gonna go to the file. That's what I'm supposed to start with actually. I'm gonna go to the 6th option. I showed it to you how it works on the when we were talking about networking of the VirtualBox the last week. So I have already 3 adapters, and as you see, they have IP addresses here. Well, the third one is what I showed you the last time, actually. So I created it, and you see when you create an adapter like this, the DHCP server, which is integrated inside, by default is switched off. Now, I could use these 2 adapters. I need 2 host network adapter, host only network-based adapters. Remember, the huge advantage is that I will be able right away from my real machine to access the virtual machines just by IP address without any NAT translation and anything. Disadvantage commonly is that you don't have access to internet. Well, that's why I'm putting the firewall. It will provide me through the one interface with the internet access from my real network, so that's not an issue. Actually, I need 2 host-only adapters. This is the one which I installed the last time. I will install another one, so this first and the second one I won't use because apparently I'm using for another exercise. I could use them, but in case I start both of them together, they might not work. That's why I will install this one. I showed it to you. I'll leave this one and I'll install another one. In your case, you guys are supposed to create 2. If you decide and to use the first one, it's not a bad choice, and you would like to uncheck the DHCP server, something you need to do because we're gonna install our own DHCP server into the firewall. And if you remember, 2 DHCP servers will kill each other. So basically, you could uncheck this one, but then if you remember, I said you need to reboot your not only the virtual machine, also your laptop, your real machine. So in that case, I'll use this one which I created the last time, and I'll click again to create a new one. You guys need to create only 2 of them, and you need to be sure that the DHCP server is not checked. If you uncheck the DHCP server, well, you need to reboot the laptop and then use them. Okay. By default, when you create, as you see, from the scratch, they're unchecked, so no problem. So I will change the IP addresses here. I would like to be something more easy to remember. I'll click here. I'll choose for my, now you see, I could configure automatically the adapter. Well, that it is configured automatically. When I click here, the adapter manually, so I could change the IP address, and I'll change here to 50. So my LAN network will be 192.168.51. Okay. That's the IP version 6 address if I would like to see it. The DHCP server, I'm not going to enable it, as you see. So I'll say apply. And here it is. It has been changed. That's my LAN. For the other one, which will be my DMZ, I'll click twice on the 3rd octet and I'll write down 150. And I'll say apply again. And it's done. Now keep in mind the very first address, which you see here, you cannot use it anymore. So be sure it is excluded on any DHCP ranges you're giving or other stuff, or if you do it manually, don't use it. So this one is another IP address you cannot use, as well as for this interface, this one. So 192.168.50.1 or 192 network of 192.168.50 with the CIDR or 24-bit mask, and the one 192.168.150 with 24-bit mask. These two are particularly my LAN and my DMZ. So say close. I'll go back to my firewall, I'll do settings, and I will navigate to network. And now here on the first adapter, which set will be LAN, I will choose the host-only adapter. And then I'm going to choose the host-only adapter number 3. Here it is. If I need to make a note of the MAC address, that's the moment. Take it as a copy and paste it on a text file, or if you're not sure when you start installing, so to be in compliance, you know which interface is which. Okay, so that's the way. I will show it to you when it starts the installation. And for the adapter 3, which will be my DMZ, I will choose again. First, of course, I need to enable it, and then I will choose the host only. In this case, I will choose the fourth one. Okay, so here how my adapters. One always on opnsense. Well, most of the time in opnsense is the second adapter. It's breached. The LAN or local area network, it is number 3, which I just created. Well, I created the last week, and I apply 192.168.50 network on it. And adapter 3, which I just created, in which I apply 192.168.150 network, is my third adapter on my DMZ. I'm gonna say OK, and now I could start the installation of the opnsense. Any questions? Now apparently I haven't chosen the CD. It's fine. You see the program is enough smart to ask me, so I'll say add the usual way I put the ISO images. I'll go to my downloads. When you download the file, actually it is a zip file. It is a zip file. So here it is. It's a BZ2 file actually. It's a zip. It's archive. So you need to right click, open 7-zip, open the archive. Here it is, and afterwards actually I'm going to move it to wherever my files are sitting. So I'm going to put it here. I will extract it there, and I will choose the opnsense here. I will choose it. I'll say start, and the virtual machine will start. And now, after fixing the problem with the adapter, we're able to start working. Here it is. Now when you're prompted to press any key to start the configuration important, you just wait. You don't need to do anything. Just wait a couple of seconds and it will start by itself. When you see again to press key to start the menu interface assignment, don't do anything, just wait. Again, so it's waiting. It will assign automatically the interfaces, the network interfaces, the way, most probably the way which I told you. There are some exceptions, sometimes it's different. The one interface might be the first one, but that's very uncommon. Now you see automatically the adapters has been assigned a name, so wide area network and local area network. And I see the name of the adapter here, EM0, which is for LAN, and EM1, which is for LAN. Well, the first adapter actually is the first one, the adapter 1. Okay, but if I still have some doubts, when I log in, I will be able to see the MAC addresses of all of these adapters. But EM0 most of the time stands for the first one. So you guys to log in here. You to log in here, the initial login. So what you see at the moment is a live version. So if you would like to install it on the hardware, the virtual hardware we prepared for it, we need to put the initial credentials. You could Google them. Their installer is the username, so installer, like this, and the password is opnsense. Opnsense is the name of the distribution. Opnsense. And here how it looks. Now basically what it will do now, it will straight send you to the installation wizard. So what you need to do now is to click inside. You might lose your mouse, it's not a problem, and you could use now only the keyboards. So you click OK for this, you click enter on the keyboard. You need to accept the settings, so again enter. Guided installation is better than all the others. That's the spare hard drive, virtual hard drive we use, so we need to click anyway enter. Now that's the only different thing you need to do, except of choosing the default one. You need to go with the down arrow one down. Don't choose the GPT mode, use the MBR mode, the master boot record. The first lecture I explained you what it is. You could find it in the very first module on the chapter 7. So click MBR mode. That's the installation actually, what you see. If you need, for any reason, you need your mouse, you just move it a little bit up. If it's stuck, right control, it shows you. Click on the right control and you're going to get your mouse back. And whenever you need to do something inside, click inside and use the keyboard. Here it is. Now when you're prompted for a password, I'm using most of the time a short password for my labs. You could use a complex one. I would suggest use something simple. It's a it's a it's a lab environment. So I'll click enter here, and now that's the moment to reboot. Now when I click reboot, it will reboot it. You need to wait and to shut it down manually once it's rebooted. So I'm gonna wait until it shut it down completely and it starts again. And I will click on the cross here and reboot it. It doesn't remove the CD. Now here it is, it's just rebooted. I'm gonna click now. I'll say power off and I'll stop it. Something which they didn't do, they didn't remove the storage. So basically, if in your sequence here the optical storage is the first thing, indeed actually it will check again. So if it's the second one, it will start from the hard drive. Otherwise, like mine, you need to go and manually remove it. So I'm gonna click on this one. I'll go here to the CD, which will appear on the right side. Go to the bottom and I'll say remove. Otherwise, if you don't do this in the configuration which I have, and most of the time you also have, guys, it will start the installation over again. So you could install it this way the whole day without really installing. Okay, so be sure you will do this thing, and then you just click start, and now the installed already the installed already distribution or whatever firewall, it is there. It has been installed and provides you with the basic information. It says that my one has an IP address of 172.16.100.141. Why? Well, because my network is like this. The other IP address is the default one which opnsense is providing you with. The first thing you need to do is to change it. Now, once it is installed, the username is changed to root, not installer anymore. And the password is wherever you configure while we were installing. As in Linux, it doesn't show the symbols. And here it is, I'm there. If I would like to log out, I could do, I mean, from 0 to 13, so 14 actions I could do from the from this type of interface. I could do most of the time, most of the things. If I know the commands, I could go to the shell, which is the option 8, as you see, and I could do everything from the shell actually. Now, I will go to the number one is the assigning interfaces. If I click one and click, I'll see the MAC addresses. You see EM0 now shows me the MAC address. EM1 and EM2 show me all the MAC addresses. So if I have any doubt which one is which at the moment, I could click on the settings, go network, choose the advanced option, and I could go. Now, here it is, adapter 1. It has the MAC address which finishes on A29. So actually I'm looking for the EM0 here. Okay, here it is. It's a A29. So that's exactly what I'm expecting, right? That's my host-only adapter, which I will use for my LAN. If I go to adapter 2, I will see a MAC address of which finishes D76. That's exactly what I'm seeing on EM1. D76, here it is. And of course, if I go EM2, this is what I see here, A1D. At the end, A1D, here it is. So that's the way, if you would like to go and do stuff, if you would like to manually change the adapters, which one is which, you could do it here. I don't want to do anything about this, so I'm going to do Control C to stop at it. Okay. For me, it's already well organized the way I expect. You see the DMZ by default is not shown. We're going to do it after this. So I need just to change the IP address, this one 1.1, to correspond, let me open once again the networking settings, to correspond to my host-only adapter, which is adapter 5. And if you want to see the IP address which we assigned, host network manager, adapter 5, 192.168.51. Remember, I changed 3 to 5 because the 3 was damaged. Okay? And the DHCP once again is stopped. We're gonna implement our own DHCP. So I'll stop this one. Here I'll choose the next option, which is number 2. I need to change this IP address 192.168.1.1 to something which is connected to my switch, so me from my real computer to access the interface right away. So I'll do here number 2 option. I'll click enter. Now it will ask me which interfaces you would like to change the IP address on. Now apparently I don't want to choose the wide area network, because it is good for me. It's giving me the proper IP address. So I want LAN number 1. So I'll click 1 here again. Enter. Now it's asking me if I want to configure it via DHCP, and as you see, N is capital. That means that's the default option, meaning I don't need to write it down. I just click enter and it will be fulfilled. So that's what I want. I don't want DHCP. I would like manually to do it. At the moment, it's assigned kind of DHCP. I don't want to change this. I want to change this. So I'm going to click enter here. And it's asking me to create one. Well, I will create one, 192.168.15. And I will choose the last possible, last useful IP address, 254. So easy to remember. Okay, I'll click enter. Now it's asking me what will be the subnet mask in bits. I'll say 24. Now you see it says what you need to do for one. For one you need to click enter. That's what I'll do. Here it says something about IP version 6, which most probably I will change, but for now I'm just gonna click enter and accept the default one. Do you want to enable DHCP server on LAN? Yes, definitely I want to enable it. That's why I stopped the DHCP server here. Once again, here it is. That's why this one is stopped, because I will implement it within the, I'm gonna take IP addresses not from the firewall, from the virtual box, which I cannot control. I will implement them from the firewall. So instead of having the default option, which is no, I'll say Y and I'll click enter. And now I need to put the range. So 192.168.50. Let's say the first one will be 200. The last one, 192.168.50.250. So in between this range, all of the IP addresses will be assigned automatically by the DHCP of this firewall, click enter. Now, once we try to access it from our browser, so that's the browser. Once I try to access this, once it's done, I will try to access it from the browser itself. I need to put an IP address here. Well, by default it will be HTTPS protocol, which will allow me to access it, which is the good protocol, meaning it will secure any username and password which I will enter. So if somebody sniffing the network won't see my passwords. Now it's asking me, do I want to change it to HTTP, which is unsecure version? Well, I don't want. PFSense by default actually is on the HTTP, was on the HTTP before. I think nowadays they changed it, but before it was there. So it's asking for people who are coming from this environment if they want to be in the same environment as before, actually. And you're gonna see it will look, well, I don't know how much practice you have with PFSense, but it looks familiar and the commands are similar. So if you are switching from PFSense, most of the time you expect HTTP. That's why most probably they put it this option. Well, for us, we're gonna choose the default N, which means we're gonna click enter. And now everything what we set up will be executed. As you see, it will change the LAN address to 192.168.50.254. So I'll open my browser and I'll put this IP address. So that's the beauty of the host-only network. When I click here and when I put 192.168.50.254, I don't need to put HTTPS. By default it will go there. Here it is. That's a good thing. Well, the certificate for the encryption, the S portion of HTTP, is assigned by. It has been created by the firewall itself. So it's warning me it might be dangerous. Well, I know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna say here advanced. I'll say accept. The risk can continue, and here it is. Now I'm gonna use the root again, and the same password which I created before. I'll say login. I'll save it even. And now I'm gonna see the default web interface, which I could proceed in more user-friendly mode. Do my settings, and I'm gonna do the initial wizard. Actually, I'll do next. I'll change the name to firewall. I'll change my domain to test.local. You could use whatever you want. That's his name is anyway. Primary DNS server, secondary. If I don't choose anything, the firewall will be DNS, which is important. At the beginning, it will be the DNS, the primary one. Afterwards, we'll change this. But for now, we'll leave everything like it is. Enable resolver, which is by default enabled. That's what it means. It will be a DNS server by default. I'll say next. Now it's asking me to be connected my network time protocol server to which will be integrated and which is very important function in any network to be connected to a specific time server in the internet. I'll need just to choose my zone to be closed. So I'm going to choose America. And I'm going to go to the location which is close to me, which most probably is Toronto. I'll say next. Now, it's asking me for one interface. Well, DHCP is the preferred way, and we're going to leave it like this. We're going to change something a little bit down, though. I mean, here. We're going to go down. Now, you see it says block private network from entering via 1, and block non-internet routed networks from entering 1. Now, by default, when you install as a firewall to your home, to your office, to your business, yes, you need to stay, these two of these need to stay checked because they will block from your outside. If you are, let's say, internet service provider or third party wants to access from a local area network private address to access your, to get access easily to your network. Now, in our case, since we are in an environment where my as you see, my one address is a private IP address. If I leave it like this, it won't work. Okay, so in that case, I need to uncheck. We're gonna uncheck it only for the lab environment when you have a private IP address on your one, as in this case. Otherwise, we're going to leave it always. The other options we don't touch because they are related with the basically with DHCP, which automatically is received. So click next here. That's the IP address which I assign. I will leave it. Now the password, I could choose the same. You could change it if you want. No problem. I'll say next here, and I will reload. So all the settings which I just did, they to be applied. So in about the moment, it will get back. So the lobby, you see, it's organized in sections, and the lobby is the section where the dashboard actually, when you click, you're gonna see your firewall, how it goes in general. Now, a couple of things we need to finish now, and I'm gonna finish then the movie and I'll publish it, and I'll leave you guys to work on it. So the first thing we need to go and to check the settings which we did, as well as to assign the DMZ. Remember, there is no DMZ assigned here. So let's do it. The way we do it is to go first to the interfaces. So it's the option number 4 from the top, and then you see the interfaces here already assigned. Now I could click here on the assignments, the third option here, the third sub options, and I'm gonna see actually my interfaces names, what is the card, and the MAC addresses. That's another way I could change the thing. Okay, and I see that there is a third one which is my DMZ. Okay, I could delete and I could reassign afterwards. No problem. Delete actually doesn't really delete them; it just delete them from the dashboard. So I need to assign the third interface to DMZ. So I'm gonna click on the plus sign here, and it is done. It's called OPT1 by default. You see all of these interfaces they have here. You know, they have kind of underline, which is the hyperlink. If I click on it, actually I'm gonna it will act as I click on the LAN. Okay, as you see, the OPT1 appeared now on the left side. So I'll go here, I'll click on the LAN first. You see the interface is enabled. That's a good thing. That's the name of the interface. I could actually click here and prevent it from removal. If somebody wants to remove it, first you need to remove it. Now, you see these options for block private network and BOGO networks, they're still here, but since it will act with the other private networks, that, as you see, it's unchecked. I'm using static IP address. That's how I configure it while I was changing it here, if you remember initially, when I changed it from 192.168.11 to 192.168.52.54. And the other thing, actually, I don't need to change, and you see here it says that's the IP address I've chosen, 24. And the other things we don't need to say, because I did something on this interface. I need to click save. By the way, I would like to change the name of this one. So changing the name of this interface is going wherever it says description. I want this to be with small letters. So I'll go ahead and say that again. And I'll say apply changes. It won't apply the changes until you click on this. And you're going to see now it's changed to small letters, and now it's preventing accidental interface removal. Now I'll go to my one. It's enabled. I uncheck this block private networks. Everything is fine. I'm going to change the name again to small letters. I'll save it. And I will say apply changes. And then I'll go to OPT1. Here it is. I will enable. I'll do prevent interface removal. And I'll call to DMZ. Okay, block private and BOGO, it will work. Now, this guy will work also, if you remember, it will work with the outside world. So when it will work with the outside world, for us it's a private address. It is a private IP address. So basically, you could you're not supposed to stop. You're not supposed to check these ones here. That's why there. Now we need to create an IP address. At the moment, you see IP configuration type says none, so I'm going to say static IP address. I'm going to go a little bit down where I could write down the IP address. It will be, if you remember, 192.168.150. And I'm going to choose 254 for it as well. Now, notice that by default, the CIDR is 32. You need to click and choose 24. People very often forget to do this, and then it's giving on the next step, giving error. So I'll say save now. I'll apply the changes. And after the applying the change, actually I'll go to the one and I will prevent the, I forgot to do this, I'll prevent the interface from removal. Say save and apply. So now my interfaces indeed are organized. When I click save here, I'll do apply changes. If I go back to lobby and I go to the, here it is. If I go to lobby, if I click on the dashboard, indeed I will see the three interfaces now. Well, then here it is. The three interfaces already configured and there, and you see that they're up, how they have full duplex, 1 gigabit throughput, and so on and so forth. The last thing we need to do before we finish the movie is to go to the services, which is number 7 from the top. In the services, we're going to go to the second subsection, DHCP, and in the subsection here, we're going to see the DHCP for DMZ and LAN. As you see for the one, since it gets its IP address from DHCP, there is no DHCP server option here. So I'll go first for the LAN. Here it is, enable DHCP server. Now, you will notice that the range which I defined is changed. That's why I'm coming here. I'm going to change it back to what I want. 200, 250. That's what I want. And if you see also, I have now all the options to put some stuff here, so the clients which will be hooked to the DHCP, they to receive certain information which they will use. After when we implement our DHCP on our Windows servers, we'll stop this. For now, I'll say what will be the DNS server here, which the clients will receive. Obviously, that will be the firewall itself, the interface of the firewall. The gateway for the LAN as well is this one. My domain name, if you remember, is test.local, and the search list, domain search list, is the same actually, so you need to fill here the same. Now, if you need some help, you could go hover over I and it will tell you, or click on I and it will tell you what it specifically goes here. If you would like to see comprehensive full help for everything, so you click on this one and it will show it below all of the options here. So once you choose all of this, you just go to the bottom and you say save. And it is done. And as you see, now it's running. I could reboot the service from here. I could stop it as well from here. I'll go to DMZ and I'll do the same. I will enable the DHCP server. I will say 192.168.150 and let's say 200 here. And this one will be 250. Now this time for the DNS server, I will choose the interface. I will choose the interface of the firewall, the LAN interface for now. I could change it after this. And as I mentioned, when we create our Windows servers inside DNS servers, we're going to use them. For the gateway though, I would need to use the DMZ interface, otherwise it won't be able to access the internet, right? And domain name will be test.local. And again, domain search list, this one. I'll go down, I'll say save. And if everything is fine, I'll see it up and running. I could see the services actually when I go back to lobby, dashboard, and I could see the services running here as well. Here are the services. Now, if I would like to test all of this, if I would like to test it, the important test which I need to do is to open the CMD. And from CMD to try to ping the interface of the firewall, the one interface of the firewall, which is this one. Put it on that side. So I need to try to ping the IP address of 192.168.141. So let's try to ping it. Well, I need to use the proper command, of course. Now you see I have problem. It doesn't allow me to ping it. Actually, maybe it's a problem, maybe it's not. Okay, I'm telling you it's not a problem because the firewall at the moment is blocking it. But we need to test and to see what's going on and how it's going. Okay, so with this I will